It began as a quiet murmur that something had gone terribly wrong in Clarence's house, whispered behind closed doors. Words like calamity and catastrophic were suddenly being used by people who generally speak in clipped, courteous tones. They weren't discussing a tabloid article or some insignificant social faux pas. They were discussing Prince Harry, who at one point represented the monarchy's future, but now appeared to be pulling it apart, piece by piece. What was intended to be a measured approach to making amends with King Charles has devolved into a public spectacle that includes with a palace that has had enough accusations and anxiety. Rarely does a royal source, operating with the king's approval, go out and give the media a message so direct that it could have been yelled from the balcony. But right now, that's precisely what's taking place. Normally cautious to avoid the noise, the crown is abruptly in damage control mode. And the spark that ignited the fire was Harry's remarks. The Clarence House meeting had been portrayed for months as a gentle beginning for something positive. A father and son are slowly making their way back into one another's life. Harry was fortunate enough to meet the king. Be fortunate, according to insiders, since he was still given tea and the opportunity to make amends, despite years of books, interviews, and Netflix specials in which he voiced every possible complaint. However, in place of silent appreciation, a barrage of bizarre allegations, discussions of evil forces, rumors of sabotage, and plots within the palace gates were heard. Already bearing the burden of the throne, Charles's health, and a country's as Harry continued to punch holes through his fingers, it was like attempting to grasp water in his palms. Not only are the comments themselves frustrating, but the trend is as well. Harry has disagreements with his friends, his responsibilities, and even his own nation. He starts verbal battles the way other people exchange SMS. He finds himself standing alone on an island made of his own charred earth while the bridges burn one by one. His unsuccessful charity, Centerball, is mentioned by sources. Described as a public relations dumpster fire, the initiative was once optimistic. Its chairwoman, Sandra Chandela, a renowned individual with a reputation for decency, publicly battled with him, and the organization was in shambles as a result of the aftermath. This dude has more than just a short fuse. This individual appears committed to destroying the same foundations that previously provided him with meaning. Despite this, the palace's response has been so subdued that it borders on Shakespearean. The palace just referred to Harry's most recent comments as unproductive in a world where every celebrity altercation is either scandalous or explosive. However, the dagger concealed within that word is obvious to anyone familiar with royal language. When Queen Elizabeth responded to the Oprah interview with varying recollections, she used the same tone. 3 syllables that were so eloquently deadly that they put a stop to arguments. What the king's people mean when they say something is unproductive, is harmful, perilous, and not acceptable. They are communicating to the world that trust has been betrayed, possibly irreparably. However, Harry's perception of himself appears to be different. According to reports, he thinks he's helping by flying into England as a moral Calvary and putting himself in a position to take the fall while William and Catherine deal with their own problems. But that story simply drives the fury to the public. Additionally, it seems to the palace that Count Dracula is volunteering at a blood bank. After accusing his family of racism and selling his complaints to the highest bidder, the man now wishes to assist. The sheer haughtiness of it is astounding. Furthermore, the denial seems to overpower the truth in Monaceto, where he asserts freedom and enjoyment. Why does he keep telling everyone if he's truly so happy? King Charles's rage is more than a fleeting emotion. It is the culmination of years of patience finally erupting. Those who know him well characterize him as his own son's ability to turn a moment of reconciliation into another media battle left him perplexed and nearly hurt. The monarch, who has had to deal with his illness, his responsibilities, and the Commonwealth's expectations, is now in the embarrassing situation of having to publicly correct his child. According to palace insiders, in an unprecedented move, Charles himself gave the get-ahead for officials to go on record. Unless they feel cornered, royals just don't wade into the mud like this. Charles's approval of such claims demonstrates the gravity of the situation. This has nothing to do with a small misunderstanding. The goal was to dispel rumors that Harry is being targeted by the palace itself. An idea so ridiculous that even experienced courtiers shook their heads. What truly disturbs people who are closely observing is the paranoia. Many people are curious about Harry's mental state after hearing about evil powers sabotaging him. Friends who used to hang out with him rumor that he used marijuana in the past. And more compounds can have caused scarring. Though few dare to say it out, the notion that paranoia might be a remnant of that lifestyle is discussed in secret circles. However, the pattern cannot be ignored. Even though there are still concerns over the information he provided on his U.S. immigration application, he acknowledges severe drug use in his book. Spare, he caused a legal headache and a credibility gap that follows him everywhere by postponing his confession in print. As he now discusses, critics trace it back to those times and question whether his brain chemistry ever really healed from conspiracies about being undermined by phantom adversaries. Something sinister combines with that worry: the increasing suspicion that Harry is ill. A man who has become a prisoner of his own rage is the subject of muttering and shaking heads from former comrades. He lashes out, backs off, and then lashes out once more, alienating a fresh group of followers each time. The sting has even reached non-profits that formerly welcomed him. Zental, an initiative that ought to have demonstrated his empathy, but following a disagreement with its esteemed chairwoman Sandra Chandela, turned into a symbol of conflict. Today, the organization is only a shadow of its former self. This demonstrates how easily Harry's involvement may turn chaotic. This is not the tale of a single unfavorable week. It tells the tale of a man who makes every chance into a battleground. Meanwhile, a peculiar dissonance is present on the other side of the Atlantic. The Sussex Project in Monaceto collected pictures of joy. Stage smiles, garden walks, and chicken coops. However, beneath that polished surface lies a continual drive to express how happy they are, and stating repeatedly that you're pleased is the biggest sign of insecurity. It's the royal equivalent of someone who secretly avoids the scale while sharing daily selfies from the gym. People are less likely to believe Harry the more he promotes the "I'm fine" story. When he says that his sole purpose in the UK was to concentrate on his patronage and spending time with family seems meaningless. Though they sound more like damage control than the truth, the denials keep coming out. That's why it hurts so much when the palace calls his actions unhelpful. It goes beyond a simple diplomatic remark. It's a judgment, a declaration that you have ruined your own life. Harry's supporters maintain that he has no desire to resume his royal responsibilities, that he is content with his life in California. The undertone, however, conveys a different message. He is demanding importance and evading accountability by portraying himself as the victim of palace sabotage. The audience has grown weary of this script, and his father no longer appears to be ready to put up with it. The man who was heralded as the spare appears to have run out of opportunities, and the stage is set for an even worse rift. Exasperation is depicted inside Buckingham Palace. Harry is now referred to as a walking crisis by courtiers, who are often instructed to keep rigid upper lips, someone who is untrustworthy of even the slightest kindness. Instead of being regarded as a unique occasion of father and son bonding, the Clarence House meeting has been reframed as a humiliation. Charles regrets letting it happen at all, according to insiders, since he worries that every encounter would eventually end out in the media. Harry has turned into the loudspeaker that never turns off in a family that depends on discretion, and a king or queen cannot afford to put up with that. In contrast, William is reportedly vindicated in silence. He forewarned for years that his brother's whims would bring about disaster. He was the first to notice the trend, the snap judgments, the need for approval, and the incapacity to remain silent. He doesn't gloat, according to those close to him. However, there is a tired sense of fulfillment that his prophecies have materialized. He is aware of his father's fondness for Harry. He is aware of that softness, though, has now come at a very high cost. William's priorities continue to be his own family, his wife's well-being, and the long-term planning for the throne. His belief that the monarchy cannot adapt to one man's upheaval has only grown stronger after witnessing Harry's slip. Meanwhile, the public vacillates between sympathy and annoyance. Some people perceive Harry as a paranoid individual, possibly even a victim of his own previous decisions. They remember the soldier who served in Afghanistan, the boy who walked behind his mother's funeral, the prince whose ease previously enchanted multitudes. They claim that Harry is no longer there. He is replaced by a character who starts quarrels with ghosts and holds everyone else accountable for the consequences. Less empathetic people only perceive entitlement. They see him as the least